Blog Talk Radio.
Please take all the necessary precautions to protect your Constitution while listening to this broadcast. 3, 2, 1. Coming to you live via the internet. It's time for Rage Against the Regime. Let's get ready to rumble! Finally, a show for patriots, defending the Constitution and uncovering the truth at every turn, bringing you exclusive interviews and covering the topics the mainstream media doesn't dare to touch. Call in and join the discussion at 929-477-3565. That's 929-477-3565. And now, here are your hosts, Bobby Who's the Man and Becky Williams. Rage Against the Regime.
I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man. Yes, I am, yes, I am, yes, I am. I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man. Welcome, everybody. This is Kc Massey. I'm hosting the show tonight. The intro was from Bobby and Becky's show. I'll have one up next week for mine. Going to have Travis Kunstler come on today. He's going to talk about what happened with him down at the Texas Capitol. We just basically want to try to talk about liberty and freedom and what we can do to get our country back and to move forward the cause of liberty and try to get rid of all this suppressive government that's been weighing down heavily on us. This second, I'm going to pull in this caller. Hello, who's this?
It's me, Terry.
Hey, Terry, what's going on?
I notified a bunch of people I'm in contact with, Kc, and gave them the link and the call-in number, and hopefully they'll call in and listen. A bunch of them up in Ohio and other areas. So thanks for being here for us. Have a good show, brother.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I'm waiting on Travis to call in. He hadn't called in yet. He's going to call me sometime this afternoon. My other partner, James, is going to call. I don't know what's going on with him, man. My computer's giving me a major problem. I was able to log in earlier today and get everything going. Then come showtime, then my Skype didn't want to work. And, oh, man, it's just been one thing after another. So
well, as long as everybody can just call in, that'll be fine. It'll go good.
I think so. I haven't seen a problem yet.
Well, what's your topic tonight, brother? Texas?
Well, I wanted to talk with Travis. He's been victimized by the state. They came in down and got him for criminal trespass at the state capitol. And how can you be criminally trespassed from your own state capitol?
Right. Well, they're a different entity. We, the people, are, in their eyes and their actual mentality, we're nothing. We're nobody. They don't recognize the sovereignty of we, the people. That's a given these days.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems to be that is the truth. We've lost our way by just sitting back and not being active in the government. We've allowed our government to overtake us and to take us in a direction that's to benefit them, not benefit us, we the people. And, man, it's a heck of a battle to win. And, sometimes it seems almost pointless, but how can you give up on a free country when you know, like in my case, and I'm sure yours too, children and grandchildren and the great-grandchildren to come, we want this country to be here. So it's a pretty disheartening thing. And one of the things I think that keeps a lot of us apart is, we concentrate too much on the things that we hate. We need to concentrate on the things that we love. And that's the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We all want to be able to do what we want to do, and we got to quit concentrating on, well, I hate the Muslims, or I hate the blacks, or I hate this, or I hate that, because there's trash in every race, every religion. I mean, you've got it all. But I feel like we need to concentrate on the common threads that bring us together, not the threads that tear us apart.
Absolutely.
So that's what I want to try to do the show about, and that's what I want to try to do is get open dialogue and get people talking about it and come up with ideas. We've got a lot of patriots that have come up with good ideas. A guy named Gary Hunt is one of the plans that I like to push is what, he wrote and outlined. And we got to do something. I mean, because I definitely don't want to go to war with my own country. You know what I mean? I don't want to have a problem where my fellow Americans are killed or, our country is destroyed. Civil war always tears up the country, no matter what country it is. And that's the last thing I want to do is see our great nation set back 100 years from a civil war.
I have to agree with you, Casey. That's just, oh God, a last resort. I wouldn't want to see it. If it should ever kick in, it's going to be a long, terrible, horrific event. I don't want to see that, but I think we all share in frustration, like Miss Becky, all the bills that come on the program and on my friends list. We all share in frustration. We petition, we file grievances, we bitch, moan, and groan, and we call, and they don't care. They simply do not care. Now, when people show up en masse, it kind of gets their attention. Different states are starting to do the open carry. Well, you don't need a license. You don't need a permit. And I see this starting to catch on a little bit. It needs to go on a little quicker, I think. But people are beginning to stand up in different manners of, like you, I follow you. I listen to you, especially when you was on the border. I tuned in. I think it was who was it? I think it was Pete Santilli that turned me on to you. Listening to his show one day, I think that's where I tuned in to you. Either him or Kessler. So much for that guy, but.
Probably
I've been
Santilli came down there when I first got down there. He came down that first day too. I think this might be Travis. Hold on just a second, Terry. Let me click and see if this is Travis.
All right.
Travis, is it you? Keith. Oh, okay, it's Keith. Okay, Keith. Yeah, we're just sitting here talking, me and Terry, and waiting on Travis to call. He should be calling in any time now. Had all kind of computer issues when I first started trying to get this dang computer going. Now I've got two computers to use, and the other one, it's not wanting to. I think the government's messing with me tonight. Both my computers been doing perfect, nothing wrong. I get ready to do the show, and Skype crashes. My other computer crashes. It says it. The proxy server's not working. It's not allowing me to get out on the internet. It's like, holy crap, what is going on? So I don't know.
He had mentioned about the open carry. There's 45 states now that allow open carry.
Are they that many?
Yep.
Hallelujah.
Even California has an open carry law, but the problem with California, I know a guy in California said, yeah, they let you open carry, but it becomes against the law if you cause alarm. So, you know what I mean? All it takes is one crybaby, and then all of a sudden, you're in trouble.
That's a guy advised me up in Ohio. He said, yeah, we got open carry here, but all someone has to do is call the police. And if they come up to you and say, well, we have to charge you with creating panic or inciting panic, we have to take your weapon away from you and give you a ticket. And it's just another tool. When I was a park ranger, for example, in Ohio years ago, they only had 3-2 beer back when they had 3.2 beer in the park. But you weren't allowed 6% beer. But, you know, if we saw people with 6% beer, well, nobody bothered them. You know, it's their park. Unless they got unruly and started causing other people and their families a problem, would say, okay, you got 6% beer, you have to leave the park. You know, that was the only way we would even give anybody a problem. We didn't even carry weapons. But, you know, it's just another tool that they have well, you know, one video I saw of a guy, he said, well, where are they at? Where did they, who did I panic? Have them come forward. Let me talk to them. Let me see, who did I panic? Who did I cause fear to? I mean, you know, but, well, we're not at liberty to say, but we did cause panic. But anyway, he stood his ground. He knew his rights, and they turned him loose and let the guy go. And that's it. People got to stand their ground. Always be respectful to a police officer. When a cop gets my attention, I don't go to full military bearing, but I go into a absolute respect. I say nothing more or nothing I don't need to say. You know, I don't try to shoot shit with him. Just, you know, point blank business. I got pulled over here the other day and in Tennessee here, and the guy was just as polite, direct to the point, and was on his way. Vehicle I was driving didn't have insurance. I guess it alerted on those new scanners they got. Right today, if you can drive by a police officer and say you got a suspended license, or your license is expired, or say there's a warrant on an individual and his name is on that tag or whatever, it automatically alerts to his dashboard.
Oh, yeah.
Vehicle.
Isn't that lovely how they do that? I was seeing a deal where they have those cameras installed, and it just scans license plates. So when you pass, if you just so happen to be a hit for whatever reason, then that gives them the instant reason to pull you over. But the problem that I see mainly with that is, how do you know that the person who it's registered to is actually the one driving it?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, they
so,
don't.
I mean,
they
then
know
you're
that.
pulling somebody over for nothing.
Yep. There was a kid telling me last year, or year before last, he was sitting out on his front porch and he had a couple beers and he was getting right, you know, and cop went down and he stopped real fast and he backed up. So he boogied in. He boogied back in the house, you know, and shut the door, and he's peeking out the windows, and then another cop shows up, and then another comes up, and they're beating on the door, and he finally opened the door, and they arrested him for something. He had a warrant on him, you know. But it's just instant. As soon as that beam hits those tags, it's fast as a rattlesnake. They get an alert. And everything comes up on their screen. Your life story comes up on your arrest record, if you have one. Everything comes up on the screen immediately. Who's your daddy? He lives over on the east side. They know everything. It's right there for them.
That is so ridiculous that we even allow that to happen to us.
Kc, I think back when they made it law to wear seatbelts, people should have said, hey, we don't want to. You can't make me. But, you know, I think seat belts are, it's good to have one on, but it's just principle, you know. Don't tell me I got to do something. And we live in a corporate world.
All the arguments they say that, well, you know, by not wearing a seat belt, you're causing, you know, a chance that somebody is going to have to pay your medical bills or this. Well, you're assuming facts, not in evidence. You're assuming that I'm not going to have insurance or a means to pay for it, or I'm going to be a burden on somebody for something. I mean, you're assuming facts that aren't there. And, you know, there's plenty of people that have died from a seatbelt, you know, not being able to get out of the car because the seatbelt jammed or locked and they burned their car, or because of being pinned in that position where say you get hit from the driver's side. My brother one time got in a collision like that. He pulled out in front of somebody, and they were fixing to T-bone him and kill him. Well, he didn't have his seatbelt on, so he was able to jump over to the passenger side really quickly, and it saved his life, because if he hadn't have been able to, he would have been dead. I mean, just that simple, dead.
Yep.
Well, I can talk about that firsthand. I had the seatbelt I had when I was in '93 in the car accident. I wouldn't have walked away. I would have had massive head injuries.
So,
Go ahead, Casey.
Well, I just don't understand how we keep allowing everybody to make choices for us. I mean, we're grown people. Why can't we make our own choices?
Well, a good example. Let's talk about it for a moment. Let's look at this amnesty bill that Obama did. It's an executive order. Everything is a law. Since when does he have power to make law under an executive order?
Well, we know that he never has, and he even admitted that he didn't.
But everyone takes it as law. Let's look at Obamacare.
Law. It's not. He's passing laws. You got an administration up there. Here I go. You got an administration up there. Like I said earlier, they don't care about what you have to say. They're passing laws for corporate, like this oil pipeline deal he just vetoed. What was it? Did he not come in for it in the beginning and kept moaning and groaning, and now he's vetoed it? He's a runaway rogue Trojan horse, this guy is.
Yeah.
You got the same guy. Yes, sir, he is.
Yeah.
This has got to come to a head at some point, somehow, some way.
But let's just talk about Obamacare. Everyone says, well, we got to go. Obamacare has 14 violations, so it makes it null and void. It's not a law. He added a piece of law onto it after it's passed. Made it null and void right there on the spot.
Even the Supreme Court said that it wasn't a law. The Supreme Court said that it was a tax.
Yeah.
But he said it was a law. Then the Supreme Court, that made me sick. That how are you going to say that it's a tax when nobody else says it's a tax? I mean, now you arbitrarily, Supreme Court Justice Roberts, are going to call it a tax when you were due to rule on the constitutionality of the law. You weren't supposed to rule as to what else it was. You were supposed to rule on whether it was a law, a legal law or not. And the answer to that would have been no, it was not a legal law.
Right. But as far as the pipeline, we don't want that to come. We don't want anything to do with the pipeline, because that's all part of that North American partnership deal, which opens up the door for the what we call the Pacific Transportation partnership deal. And that what it does in the long run, it gets rid of all our borders. So we don't want to fool with any of that nonsense.
Here's another issue with that most people don't know or understand, because, the Indians don't really get out and say much, but the tribal nations, especially in Oklahoma, the federal government is talking about taking their land to run this pipeline through it. Well, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I think the Indians have already been beaten out and pushed around enough. I mean, they drove them from their native lands, which was all over the United States, pushed them onto reservations, and now they're trying to take that reservation land. They've done it in South Dakota. They're trying to do it in Oklahoma. I mean, when does the government stop? At what point is enough enough? If it's your land.
Go ahead.
If it's your land, then how are you going to? I mean, how can the government just come in and arbitrarily say, we're going to put this pipeline here, and there's nothing you can do about it? I mean, I just don't understand how that works.
The tribal council's already taken their steps they need to for that they're going to do that already. They've already went and put stuff together, and they've already had a tribunal, so they're just waiting for the government to do that already. So I've got friends of mine in the tribal deal out of Oklahoma, so I've talked to them. They're already waiting for all that to happen. Just bring it on, boys.
Well, yeah, they're going to fight, but then the government will turn against them, and the government will try to, again, slaughter the Indians and take their rightfully owned property.
You got to understand, 80% of the people here in this country who are natural-born citizens of the country have some form of Native American in them. So there's a whole slew of people way beyond the Native American that you know of. The person that's been saying you filed, for instance, is 16% Native American. Their whole families go back. They're all Native American. Okay. Becky's, a quarter Native American. I can mention several others I know. Now, there's way more people involved in this than you can imagine. When they've all said, a lot of patriots are, and said, bring it on, boys.
I have Indian heritage in me. Go ahead,
I might have 0.03%. I don't. That's just a little bit in my bloodline there. I got a twin brother that he looks native. You know, he looks like he might be half. And then I got another brother. He's fair like me. And then another brother. He's got the you can see it in him. Well, he looks more like an Israeli. He does an Indian or a white guy. But anyway, the Constitution was designed brilliantly to protect all of us. Not, there's no designation. No one's designated, well, it's okay for you, but not you. All of us, all men are created equal. And as far as the Indian tribes, the natives on these reservations, I assume you were talking about Pine Ridge, Kc, in South Dakota?
Yeah, but the Indians they're going to affect now are the ones that are in Oklahoma. The northeastern part of Oklahoma coming down, that's where their proposed pipeline is to come down to Oklahoma, which is all Indian territory where they're talking about coming in.
Well, it's like just like the border and the Bundy Ranch out there. People need to show up. Should it go down? Because like the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, that went against the Bundy people and all the ranchers out there. They've taken so many ranchers out. I think 50 plus ranchers removed literally from their ranches. Mr. Bundy was the last to stand, him or maybe another rancher. And they bring in these corporate thugs. They're unconstitutional. They're unlawful. They're nothing but a police unit they're not police. They're unconstitutional. They're just thugs. It's like they're gangs that come in and say, you will do what the boss tells you or we're going to kill you. I met a kid when I was doing pan jobs in Atlanta back in the mid-'80s, early '80s. He was at Wounded Knee 2 in 1974. This young Sioux warrior, brave, and he was so full of bitterness that he couldn't even hardly talk about it. We were trying to work in hot sun and talk at the same time. He looked at me and he said, not on you because you're a white guy, but I'm telling, he said, them white people in Washington, D.C. is the same bosses today that they was during the Trail of Tears. He said, they're the same guys. It's the same people. It's the same authority. They're the same ones. And he said, it's not going to stop. It's never going to stop. And it's not. I don't know how we can stop it. The only thing I know, and I'd hate to see it like we talked about earlier, is a civil war, a total uprising by the American people. That's the only way. I mean, I don't want to see that, and I'm not advocating that, but that's the way I see it.
Well, and that's why one of the things that I want to try to advocate or talk about is for us to be able to have a self-governing community. Okay, so we don't want to be in your world, so to speak. We don't want to follow the rules, because one of my things is freedom. And I want to be free, but if my neighbor doesn't want to, I can't force. It's like the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So sort of trying to force you to be free like me, since you don't want to, I'll remove myself from this situation. And that's why I think if we came together as a community of like-minded people, we would be able to self-govern and go back to constitutional government, go back to common law court. You know, basically, if there is no victim, there is no crime. You know, that's the reason they've got all these crimes now, all these laws. It's for income generation. It's a way to extort money out of people. The drug laws, it's extortion. It's sickening. Portugal, Spain decriminalized all drugs. And do you know that their addiction rate went down, the crime rate went down, and it's totally the opposite of the lies that the federal government and law enforcement is trying to tell us will happen if they decriminalize. Oh, man, everybody will be a dope head. Everything will go to crap. You know, everybody's going to be drug addicts. No, man. Part of the main reason why people start drugs or do drugs, and I can say this from, you know, my experience, I'm 49, but when I was a young man, part of the thing is when you first become a man and you leave your dad's house, you know, you've been told all your life what to do and how to act. So you naturally want to rebel and show and prove to the world that, hey, I'm grown, I can do what I want to do. And y'all have always told me I couldn't do drugs, I can't do this, so I'm going to do them. And then you do them, and then that's when the addiction kicks in because they're doing it to rebel. I did it when I was young to rebel, just to do what everybody said I wasn't supposed to do. I wanted to show the world I could do what I wanted to do. And it caused me a lot of problems in my early life. Thank God I got smart and got away from it and don't engage in it anymore. But to me, that's the biggest enticement to get people on drugs. Alcohol, to me, is far worse than drugs. It's legal. And how many people are killed every year because of drunks, because of fights, gunfights, accidents? I mean, so if you've got alcohol, you can get drunk on water. I mean, anything can be abused. Prescription medications, they're all legal, but how much of the legal pharmaceutical medicine is in the black market? Tons of it.
Yeah. There's big money in it.
So, I mean, what are we doing other than creating criminals, filling the coffers of the politicians, the industrial prison complex? I mean, are we doing our citizens any good? You know, they say that, prison's not about rehabilitation. We're not trying to rehabilitate anybody. Well, then what's the point? I mean, And now it's to the point to you get sentenced for a crime, and then you do your time, and you're still a, quote, convict for the rest of your life. I mean, and I'm a victim of that. You know, I made a mistake, and it was a mistake when I was 21 years old. I was engaged in criminal activity. And I learned my lesson. I went to prison. And prison, you know, I don't regret going to prison, honestly, because it taught me more about myself than I ever knew about myself before. And it taught me the strengths that I have internally that have gotten me through life all the way up to where I am now. So while it was unfortunate that I was so stupid that I allowed myself to get involved in, you know, drugs and stealing and all that crap, I don't regret it because it made me the man that I am today. And I think that's the point, that once you've done your time, you've paid for your crime, you shouldn't be held, or it shouldn't be held against you for the rest of your life. You know, in the old days, when you went to prison, you did your time. Hell, when you got out of prison, they gave you a gun.
Yep.
You know, now you're barred from a gun for the rest of your life. I mean, how is that? This is a crazier world now than it was then.
Well, it's part of the plan. They if you'll notice, I think somebody was talking about it the other night. A man, I think it was Thomas Mick, says, no, it was another. Anyway, he said if you throw a coffee cup down on the floor and break it out of anger, you can be charged with domestic violence. Yeah, you can be charged with domestic violence. And if your wife goes, well, he's throwing stuff and breaking it, or vice versa, she's throwing stuff and breaking it, and the cops show up, and it's law. Somebody goes to jail. One of you go to jail. That's the law. It's federal law, and the states uphold it. If that individual is they're convicted of domestic violence, they cannot own a weapon. If it's a misdemeanor, but if it's under domestic violence, you can't own a weapon. Now,
under federal law.
Yeah, I don't understand, or I don't know if this is for sure or not, but I think some states forgive certain levels of domestic violence. I don't know. I don't know if that's a fact or not. But I know here in Tennessee, you can carry a loaded weapon, a long gun or a handgun, in your vehicle without a permit. You don't need a permit. You don't have to have a carry conceal permit. No permit. You can't be a ex-felon of any state that I know of and carry a weapon, a loaded gun, or any gun. Be in possession of one. That's national. That's under federal mandate.
Yeah, but see, here's the
that's
problem.
Another story
okay.
we need to get to is on states standing up for the rights of their people against the federal mandate. Federal mandate. That's all we hear. Federal mandate.
Yeah, but see, one of the misunderstandings and misconceptions of the federal, quote, gun law is that people think that possession of a gun under federal law is against the law, and that's not true.
Right.
The federal law says that you cannot be engaged in commerce to send or receive or to affect commerce. If you have been convicted of a crime, you can't have a gun in interstate commerce. It doesn't say anything about, because they don't have the power to stop you as a citizen in your home at your state. There's no jurisdiction there. But like in my case, what the federal government's trying to do is say that, well, that gun came through commerce. Okay, but that still doesn't give you the authority over the gun. Now, once the gun traveled from state to state and it was sold through a federal firearms dealer in this state, that gun became under the jurisdiction of the state of Texas. The federal government has no authority to try to keep possession or authority over that gun. It belongs to Texas. But that's what the feds are trying to do, is they're trying to say that, the feds told me, which is so stupid, well, if your gun would have been made in Texas, then we wouldn't be in this spot. Okay, so you're telling me then it's not a possessory issue, because you're saying if it was made in Texas, I could possess it and there's nothing you could do about it. So then we're not into a possessory issue. The issue is you're saying that because the gun came from another state that I can't own it. Well, that's against the 14th Amendment that said the rights of one citizen, the rights of a citizen in one state are the rights of the citizen in another. You can't sit here and say that, well, I could have the gun in this state, but I can't have the gun in that state. That's unequal justice. So, I mean, their arguments and what they're trying to use against me are totally oxymoron.
Yeah. I don't see how their bucket's going to hold water, KC. I really don't.
I don't either, and I believe my attorney, Mr. Cerullo, was very articulate and did an excellent job in his motions to dismiss, because the first problem that the government had is they shot at us. They committed a crime against the citizens patrolling the border. Whenever, I don't care who you are, if you don't have a reason, like if they'd had a reason, we'd have went to jail. Anyone does not have a reason to pull a firearm and discharge it at another unless they are trying to stop a criminal act, and
Yep.
then they put you in jail for that. Well, the Border Patrol agent shot my teammate, and then because he shot at us, that's when they decided that they were going to confiscate the firearms of everybody on the patrol. But they did so arbitrarily. They didn't have a warrant. They didn't have a right. They can't claim that it was, there's a word that they use, it's escaping me at the moment. But basically what it means is that I was an immediate danger or threat, existential. They can't say that I was an existential threat, and that's why they had to take the gun, because they allowed me to stay on the border for another 2 months armed. So they can't say that, oh, you were such a threat, we had to take the gun because I had another gun with, that day. So I was, by Texas law, because I live there, Texas law says that you can have a gun at the place you live. I live there.
Yep.
And live is where you spend the night. It doesn't say domicile or residence. It says live. Live is where you are.
Yeah, words mean everything.
So, absolutely. And I was 100% within Texas law and my rights as a... Look, the law in Texas says 5 years after you get off the paper. I was convicted in 1988. My sentence was over in 1993. 5 years after my sentence was over was 1998. This is 2014. 16 years I've had the legal right in the state of Texas to own and possess a firearm at the place I live. Even at the hotel, when they came and they arrested me with over 20 federal agents, I had a gun in my pocket. Well, here's the deal. Texas law says you can't open carry. So what was I going to do, secrete it in my rear end? So I had to move the weapon from where I live to where I live. I had a place that I lived at the hotel. That's where we did our clothes, our laundry. That's where we took showers. I rented a hotel room. Everybody in the camp used that hotel room. There's 4 different keys. So it's not like it was my room. I spent my money to pay for it because we didn't have the money or the donations, coming in to camp. So I was going from where I live, a.k.a. the hotel in Brownsville, to the border. And I have the right, because my vehicle is an extension of my home, to transport that from where I live to where I live, because I haven't figured out the bewitched trick yet where I can twitch my nose and make the gun appear. I couldn't open carry it and walk out in the parking lot with the pistol in my hand. They'd have shot me for one, and plus that's against the law. You have to have any handgun put up, concealed, however you want to call it. At the time it was summer, it was hot. I didn't have anything on but my pants and a shirt, so I put the gun in my pocket. So, I mean, they don't have a case against me. I did not violate state law, and I was not engaged in any federally restricted or regulated activity.
Or a criminal activity.
Anything. Plus, here's another thing. If I was being a criminal on the border, why would I videotape everything? Why would I have all the audio that I have? If I was trying to do something underhanded or dirty, I wouldn't want to videotape it, would I?
No. Excuse me. They try to trick people into copping a plea. When you just, but if you stand your ground, 9 times out of 10, you're going to beat them.
Oh yeah, well the first lawyer that they gave me, the first court-appointed PD that they gave me, public defender, his name was Edmund Segenowitz, and he used to be the mayor of Padre Island. He was the head prosecutor for Cameron County, tried over 100 cases and never lost one. Very esteemed, very well-known and powerful lawyer. And they gave him to me, and from day one, all he could try to do is get me to cop out. He kept telling me, how guilty I was because of the fact that I was a felon and I was in possession of a firearm. And I told him, no, man, it ain't that simple. First off, I'm a legal, lawful citizen of the state of Texas. I haven't engaged in any federally regulatable or regulable activity. All those, quote, weapons that they charged me with were all purchased legally in Texas, thereby making them Texas guns. None of those guns came from any other state, so they can't say that they're smuggled here or brought here for some nefarious use. And even my lawyer, he quoted Heller versus D.C. The Supreme Court said that everybody has a right to have a firearm at their home if they're not under conviction, under sentence. And that was my home. I lived on the border.
Let me ask you a question. See, I'm in the state of Tennessee. So, say I purchase a rifle here down at the local gun store, and I come to Tennessee and I hook up with you, and we living at the border. Are they saying that can they get me on a commerce charge for having a weapon from Tennessee and taking it to Texas?
If you were a felon, or you had been sentenced for a crime, the term is if you've been convicted of a crime with a sentence exceeding 1 year, which does include crimes like DWI, domestic violence. There's assault. There's several charges that the penalty exceeds 1 year, but in Texas, a felony starts at 2 years. But there's misdemeanors in state jail that go over a year. So you don't have to be a, quote, felon in Texas to be sentenced to more than a year, which would then put you underneath of the federal regulation or the federal mandate against having a firearm, like while engaged in commerce. Now, whether that you, by federal law, should be able to transport your weapon. It's your weapon, and you're going from here to there to hunt. Now, the only thing that I've ever seen in the federal laws about that is you just have to have the weapon in your trunk unloaded. I don't see, just like me, man. The feds will make up something and try to put a charge across you or over you that doesn't apply, but they'll try their best to stretch it over that far, and that's what they're doing with me.
Okay, now you said something about the state of Texas, that they have misdemeanor convictions that can give you more than a year. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Really?
Well, DWI is one of them. A Class A misdemeanor, the penalty can exceed 1 year of incarceration.
Up to a year or over a year? Because from
it
what
says
I've
over
learned,
a year, with the sentence exceeding 1 year.
Oh, okay. Okay. Wow. That's wow.
Well, here's something else most people don't know, and it's in 922, the same U.S. 18 U.S. 922. It also states in there that if you are addicted to drugs, well, let's just say hypothetically that you live in Colorado or California where you have a legal marijuana card, and even in Colorado you don't even have to have a medical card. You can just smoke pot because you want to. Same with Washington. But if the federal government alleges that you're addicted to marijuana, you also fall under 922. If you have been dishonorably discharged from the military, you fall under 922. If you, let's see what else, domestic violence is under 922. Trying to think. There's a bunch of charges that they can apply the same charge to you under 922 as they are me. Addiction to any drug, including marijuana, domestic violence. So if you renounce your citizenship, like some people say, well, I renounce my citizenship. I'm not a citizen of the United States. Just by saying that, if you get caught with a gun, they can try to give you the same charge that they're giving me under 922 for renouncing your citizenship.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we've allowed this to continue to happen, man. That's what's even crazier. But it's just like me, when they first arrested me, the first two things that they did was, number one, well, he's a felon. I was a felon 27 years ago. For 27 years, I've lived an exemplary life. For 27 years, I've raised a family. I've been nationally recognized as a Rebuilding for America Tradesperson of the Year finalist. I was recognized as Habitat for Humanity Man of the Year in 2010. I've raised 3 kids. One of my kids is a United States Marine. They're graduating NCO school this Friday. Another one of my kids followed my trade, and he's an electrician. He's 21 years old. He makes $16 an hour. My other son he works in the field, but he works for one of my suppliers. He's a warehouseman for one of the electrical supply companies that I buy materials from. None of my kids drink alcohol. I mean, regularly. They'll have a beer like their friends or whatever, but none of my kids drink. They've never been in trouble. None of my kids do drugs. None of them have any kind of criminal history. They all graduated high school, A.B. honor roll. I mean, you ask the people in my community, and I've been a fine, upstanding citizen. I'm not a criminal. I learned my lesson long ago, and I changed my ways, and I changed my life. I've been married for 22 years. I'm not a criminal.
You're exemplary. And you've been...
That's not the exception to the rule either. There's a lot of people...
No, the rule is...
Casey exemplifies what a lot of people have done here in Texas. Yeah. Yes, James.
Yeah, I know.
Hello.
I mean, no, you're here, brother. That's the thing.
Oh, okay.
The recidivism rate in Texas is 80% in 2 years.
Yeah.
80% of the people that get out of prison that are felons, 80% within 2 years reoffend. I've been 27 years without a charge. I was an adult 3 years when I got my case. I've lived 27 problem-free. And you're going to judge me or try to hold it against me or villainize me because of something I did as a young man?
And
another thing the mainstream media tried to do, which is a blatant lie. It hit the media that Kc Massey had ammonium nitrate and fuel bomb-making materials in his hotel room. Well, that's a patent, blatant lie. What I had was tannerite, and it was in an ammo can in my truck. I've got the ATF seizure report. There was nothing in my hotel room.
And he wouldn't have to take it out there on the camp and use it either. He knew what it would do.
Well, we didn't have a long range to use it.
We didn't have a big enough range. If the guy is going against the rules and stuff, he wouldn't think anything about the neighbors or anything like that. He'd go ahead and set it up and let it off. But no. The camp was run in a tight ship manner. There was chain of command. There was, and everybody was there for the mission of turning illegals back across the river. Not taking them into custody or anything else, just not letting them cross. The guys started, and they don't like that. They didn't like it a bit.
Yeah. Is the camp still active?
To a degree, there's still some people there. The mission has changed a little bit, and the guys that are there now, are,
well,
whenever the Feds took me down, it pretty much
violates their SOP and their we don't want to talk about what they're doing there because that's their procedures and it can throw them into a lot of into a more dangerous situation than what they're in right now. Let me tell you something. It is a dangerous situation down there.
Copy that. I know a couple guys that went to. I don't know if they were with you. Brooks from Ohio. He went out there for a while. I think he went to the Bundy Ranch for a while. I think he's back in Ohio now. Kind of lost contact with him, but he went out there for a while, and he said there was indeed Arabs coming across the border.
Oh,
absolutely.
Damn fact.
I don't know. I read a post today, and it kind of flipped my thinking, and it seems to be like I understand that they're flying in 20,000 a month, and one thing that caught my attention for the past 25 years, when it comes to the illegal amnesty thing, they say 12 million, 11 million. They've been saying that for how many years now?
Oh, you can double that, dude.
Right? Okay, now it's he wants to turn half 5 million. They've dropped it to 5 million. In fact, probably, who knows? If they're bringing in 25 or 20,000 a month. I heard a report where pilots were told to keep out. They were bringing them in and dropping them off, dispersing them. I think Minnesota or Montana is one area where they're just unloading them by the droves. But I went from Georgia back to Ohio 6 years ago, back to my old neighborhood.
The problem they're having in Missouri, the Islamification of Missouri. Holy smokes, man! A packing plant down there was running strictly on Muslim employees from, I can't exactly remember where it was. I think it was Somalia or someplace like that. And the Islamification of that whole town. It's ridiculous what they're doing and getting away with. Look at the ones that came across the border. The Catholic Church and stuff down there in Brownsville were giving them bus tickets to get to other places inside the United States. That's a felony. You can't do that. That's against the law.
Furthering it.
They've got it on TV. I'll come donate to the Catholic Church so we can help get these guys bus tickets to get them farther into the country.
They threatened us when we were on the border that if we detained anybody and we moved them, that we could be arrested for furthering civil legal immigration. So if we detained somebody on the border, we had to sit there and wait for Border Patrol to come pick them up. And I've got a video where we did just that. And the main reason, James and I have talked about this before, and we've said it before. The two main things that we accomplished at Camp Lone Star was, number one, the government said we as citizens did not have the power of arrest. Yes, we do. Yes, we did. And yes, we arrested people or detained them, and they were turned over to Border Patrol, who arrested them, and then they took them into custody. Number two, they said that we on the border didn't have the proper training to be able to deal with these illegal immigrants and stop them. And we showed that we absolutely did, because the training is their problem, because we use common sense, and we were extremely effective. James can attest to the fact that there was days, there'd be 20 or 30 a day pushing through. And that was just in the small area that we worked. That was 3 or 4 miles of border, and you compare that to the 2,000 miles of border that we have. I'm telling you, it's a way bigger problem than what they try to admit.
I appreciate you guys, and many of us do. If Ohio is anywhere on the line, I don't know if they're listening in, if any of them called in, if they got my text in time. But if you guys in Ohio are listening, please feel free to jump in. Got a lot of good people up there, Kc and James. There's good people up there. I think there's some getting ready to try to head that way. I don't know for sure.
There were a lot of good guys came from all over the United States and taking their rotations there at Camp Lone Star, and it was really amazing to see how broad the base was, and it was just outstanding to see people come in from their states. They'd come in, they would do 2 weeks, they'd do a week, whatever they could do, whatever they could afford to spend there on the border, and they would go on the patrols, they would make the difference, and then they would go home and tell what they saw, how it really was, and how it was so much different than what they were putting on the news. You know, it was just completely night and day.
Yeah, well, they are mainstream media. Shit, propaganda.
That's all it is propaganda. You know,
they're lying to
progressive liberal
to
propaganda.
America.
I mean, whatever you want to call it. You know, they've got an agenda, and that, but you know, they're trying to subvert the Constitution into a perversion that it was never meant to be. And
exactly. Well, we the people have the absolute right to defend our country and defend our states, defend our borders. I mean, that's why the militia was put in the Constitution. And a lot of people don't understand there's a thing called the
I hate to interrupt
Act.
you, Bob. Sorry about that. It states right in there, you know, that it is not only your obligation as it's your duty to defend those borders.
Well, and the Dick Act is the one that was. It was, I believe, the last version was signed in 1910. D-I-C-K Act. It defines the militia as the organized and unorganized militia. The unorganized militia is we the people. The organized militia is the state guard. You know, we do have constitutional authority to defend our state and our country, to defend the sovereignty of our border. And the government's just lying about it, the whole thing, telling us that we can't do it. We don't have authority, this, that, and the other. I mean, it's ridiculous that, you know, they want to try to lie to us and even take away our power to protect our country and our neighbor. That's the thing they've done with flooding our neighborhoods with cops. I mean, used to we looked out for each other. We didn't need police to do it. Hey, if you mess with my neighbor and I saw it, I'd take care of it. Same for if something happened to me and my neighbor saw it. They would come help take care of it. You know, but now we've gotten to where we depend on government police for everything. It's ridiculous. But hey, guys, I got Travis. I'm going to bring him on and let Travis talk a little bit and tell us about what he's got going on. He's a 3% leader in Texas. He's a great man, and man, he was really screwed over by our state police, which I don't understand how they can do that legally. I know they can't because I know the law, but, you know, that obviously still doesn't stop the cops from doing what they do, because they did put him in jail unlawfully and illegally, and now he's going to have to try to fight it to get through it, which is a real shame. But I'm going to bring Travis and let him explain a little bit about what's going on and what happened to him. And he's also involved in Open Carry Texas. He's been doing everything he can to try to work within the system to get things right. And even he gets screwed with. You know, I worked outside the system and I get slammed. He tries to work within the system and he gets slammed. So, I mean, what can we do? Hey, Travis, how you doing tonight?
Hey, how you doing, brother?
Doing good.
Well, I'm trying to listen into the conversation a little bit and catch up on where you're at. You know, it's not an easy question, and it's not an easy answer.
No, it's not. And, you know, just like you, I think one reason why, you know, they decided to mess with you is just like I didn't think that the feds knew who I was. I thought I was just an insignificant blip. I've learned that isn't the case, and I'm sure the same goes for you. You know, you're a fine, outstanding patriot. You've stood up for our state. You've tried to help get people to come together. And I know they know who you are, and I think that was part of the reason why they gave you the treatment that they did. You want to tell people what happened to you at the Capitol?
It started out, basically we've got Senate Bill, SB 11, SB 17. These are, one of them is a licensed open carry, what was considered. What we're actually trying to do is supporting the changing the language on the CHL requirement to conceal and giving an option to open carry for CHL holders. It's not really a new bill. What it is basically expanding on a current bill and allowing for more liberty for those who already have the state authorized ability to carry. We all support constitutional carry. We all support exactly what the Constitution says, but this Senate bill is basically covering, it's a baby step in the right direction. Is it really compromising? Well, no, it's just chipping away at the bureaucracy and, the status, government control that we already are in. We're already in soft form of martial law, so we have to, do what we can to take, to regain our rights one step at a time.
Was there another bill that was coming up that was constitutional carry?
There are. There's HB 195 and SB 3. I'm at a loss for what it's here. 362, 364, one of those. Yeah.
But there is another bill. There is a constitutional carry that's coming up for. I don't know if it'll come up for a vote or not here in Texas, but it is on. They are working towards it.
Yeah. What we are trying to do is to allow unlicensed open carry. There's 30 some odd, and I don't have the statistics in front of me, but there's 30 some odd states that allow open carry. And
Arizona.
Right, exactly. Even
21
Michigan.
years old in Arizona, you put your sidearm on and you go about your business every day. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. No concealed carry permit. I was in Arizona when they actually voted in to be able to conceal carry, and along with open carry.
What's funny is you've got states like Michigan, Massachusetts. I believe those are also part of the open carry states, and Texas, known for come and take it. Well, we're really falling behind, and so we're trying to catch up.
Well, Ohio is open carry.
So what happened with you, Travis, basically is you were trying to go in to testify before the Senate hearing, and because they had said they didn't want anybody bringing firearms in, even with the concealed carry, that part of the morning, it's my understanding that after your arrest, they went ahead and allowed people with concealed handguns to come on in with a gun. But you tried to go in that morning with a plastic gun, right?
Well, what happened is that morning around 7 or 8, we found out that they were not allowing CHL holders to enter the Capitol with a firearm, which is normally business as usual. You show up, you've got your CHL license, you've got your concealed handgun, and you go about your business in the Capitol. You go through the quick line. You don't have to go through all the security procedures. You just show your ID and you enter in. Well, they were saying that they were changing the rules, and so several of us were going into the Capitol to testify before the State Affairs Senate hearing, and we had some prop guns. They were, basically visual aids. Whether or not they were I had a toy gun that I bought at a grocery store, and I had it in a plastic holster. I had a sock over it with a picture of a gun, and I checked that into the security. I didn't try to hide it. I gave it to them with my wallet, my ID, my 2 pocket knives, and they didn't have any problem with anything that I had, including the pocket knives, but they said I couldn't have my toy gun. And there were other guys that went through the CHL line, and they had dummy guns as well. Your rubber, they're not toys. They were actually, dummy guns. They're used for training purposes. And they told them that they couldn't have those. The DPS that day were making their own rules, and according to the Texas Constitution, according to the Texas Penal Code, they're not allowed to make their own rules as they go. So we're, basically in a fight, unfortunately, to hold the DPS to a standard, to where they're practicing lawlessness. We're asking them to uphold the law and stand by and be accountable to the law which they are sworn to protect.
Well, they're violating the law and violating your rights to be at the state capitol, and that day and in that way, it seems like they should be getting charged with that. Is anybody checking in to seeing about charging whoever that was, that DPS officer with with the civil rights violations?
Well, we are working on that. Talked to several different agencies, myself personally, and holding these guys accountable is unfortunately not as easy as it should be. They are not only in violation of the Constitution, they are actually in violation of Texas Penal Code. And
exactly.
we are, we're not going to go down without a fight. A lot of people are not aware of this type of activity, and we are trying to stand up to, fight this, face front, and stand up and do what's right, and let them know that just because they hold a badge does not mean that they are allowed to circumvent the law.
Exactly, and it's what it seems like. There's a faction in government, just like this DPS officer or whoever his superiors were, that decided to make this arbitrary rule that day. They don't have that right.
Right. Basically here we have a law that's in place. We have Constitution that is in place, and they're basically making policy for the day because it was a quote, open carry legislation day where they've got, campus carry and open carry on the books, and they're expecting people to come. We had over 100 people testifying in support of or either on the bill, and they know this ahead of time. It's publicized, and they're making special rules for the day, and it's not legal. So
and it seems that there has to be somebody with some oversight in that to be able to correct those people. And whenever they do start making these violations of our civil rights as Texans, that they should be called to task. And lose their badge over it, because that is not the type of law enforcement that we seek here in the state of Texas.
Well, that's
and
not
I'm
law
looking.
Enforcement.
Yeah, go ahead, Casey.
That's not law enforcement. Law enforcement means you enforce the law. And these guys didn't enforce the law. They made up the law. So they were not doing their job. They were way far out of bounds. And from my understanding, and I wasn't there, but
that's
from
criminal,
my understanding, I understand, James, but from what I saw, all you did really for them to start jamming you up is you questioned them on what authority they had to try to bar you from coming in with a plastic gun, and that's when they decided to go after you for the criminal trespass, right?
Yeah, that's all I asked them. I went through the checkpoint, and everything I say can and will be used against me in court of law. So anyway, I went through the checkpoint, and I gave them my wallet, my toy gun, my cell phone, my 2 knives, and they said, "Well, we've got a question. Can you stand over here to the side?" And I said, "Sure." My phone started ringing. I asked them, can I answer my phone? And they were telling me no, but eventually they told me, eventually they gave me my phone. They were giving me a hassle at first. But then the captain on duty there, it was Rolando Rivas, he pulled me to the side and he said, "Look, we don't want to play games today. We're not going to allow this." And I said, "Well, what are you not going to allow?" "Well, you need to take your weapon back to the car." And I said, "Well, first of all, it's not a weapon. It's a toy gun that I'm using for a prop." He said, "Hey, look, I don't want to play these semantics. Take it back to the car." And, he handed it to me. He handed me a toy gun. I walked over, away from him. He came back a few seconds later and started getting in a shouting match. He started raising his voice. But, Penal Code of Texas, and I've got it pulled up here, 39, I think it's .03, official oppression, okay? A public servant acting under color of his office or employment commits an offense if he intentionally subjects another to mistreatment or to arrest, detention, search, seizure, disposition, assessment, or lien that he knows is unlawful, intentionally denies, impedes another of the exercise of his employment of any right, privilege, power, or immunity, knowing his conduct is unlawful, and it keeps on going on and on and on. He's in violation of 39.03 official oppression because, being a captain of the DPS, this man, ignorance is no excuse. They would tell that to any citizen any day of the week.
Yep.
Ignorance is not an excuse. And he knows what the law is, and he cannot arrest people unlawfully. Trespass on a public property, and he's denying me my right to freedom of speech, to redress the law to my legislators.
And not only that, you weren't even cited properly for trespass. You've got to be verbally and written. You have to be informed personally, verbally, and with a written citation that if you come back, you have to leave, but if you come back, you're trespassing.
Exactly.
They can't do that. I mean, he even the way that he got you for trespassing is a violation of the law.
Well,
and it absolutely is.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's absolutely a violation. I mean, because first, when you and I were talking before, they have to serve you with papers telling you that if you come back, that you can be arrested for criminal trespass. I know how it works. I mean, I've got a lot of friends that are law enforcement, and I've seen this and heard this, so I know, the procedures of it.
Well, I mean, it's Penal Code 30.05. So not 30.6, it's 30.5. Criminal trespass, a person commits an offense if he enters or remains in the property, including the aircraft or another vehicle, another property, without effective consent, or he enters or remains in the building of another, that's a key word there, of another, without effective consent, and he either, 1, has notice that the entry was forbidden, or 2, receives notice to depart but failed to do so. Now, of course, this goes into more legal oral or written communication with, basically someone acting on behalf of the owner. And it goes into whether or not that direction from that DPS officer was lawful or unlawful. It's kind of like the failure to ID. There is no failure to ID if there's no probable cause for arrest. And we see that almost every day from, different situations across the country, really. So I mean, this is the fight. It's whether or not this is public domain, being that it's the capital of the state of Texas, and I have a right to be there to redress my grievances and express my freedom of speech with the legislators, or can this security guard under the color of law of a DPS officer, can he stand there and tell me that he doesn't like my shirt and I've got to leave?
Were you on a list to testify?
No, it wasn't a list. It's basically you sign up as you enter the room. It's not
Were you allowed to sign? Had you signed up yet?
No, I was just entering the door. It was just a checkpoint
Wow.
as soon as we came into the door.
So they effectively kept you from being able to sign to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a sticky wicket there, bud. Somebody's got their guinea in a ringer.
Yeah, and it was I drove 5 hours to Austin. I'm actually living in West Texas as we speak. So it's 5 hours for me to go to Austin. I left at 2:00 in the morning to get there in time, and I show up. My wife and I are going through the checkpoint. We're asking, where's the restroom at? They're telling us, well, we have to go through the line first and all this kind of, stuff like that. And then we get through the line and we've got an issue. This is 5 minutes after we show up to the Capitol. And, it's just, that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's an obvious civil rights violation. It's not due process of law. It's individuals acting outside of their jurisdiction under the color of law, which is highly illegal.
Yeah, it's counter see, one thing that a lot of people don't understand, I keep trying to push this so people do understand. The Constitution does not grant us any power or rights. All the Constitution did was verbalize or put in writing our Creator endowed unalienable rights, and the Constitution was written to restrict the government, not the people. And now what they've tried to do is flip it, and they're trying to convince us that the Constitution limits us, that we can only do what the Constitution says we can do. No, we're the ones not limited by the Constitution. You guys are, and you're blatantly violating the law and the Constitution. All the things they're doing, and they keep doing over and over and over, just go to show us all that they are unlawful. They're no more than the jackbooted thugs of the mob. And they're doing it.
Hi, dude. They're worse. We're paying their salaries.
And they get to do it with guns.
And I'm paying for this kind of service? I don't think so, baby.
Well, if I tried to intimidate you with a gun in plain sight like that, they would consider that aggravated assault. Or give me some sort of heavy felony charge for me trying to intimidate you while displaying a firearm. But yet they do it to us. They falsely imprison us. It's ridiculous, man. And what's even worse is we just keep standing for it.
Well, that's just it. You're not standing for it. This man on the phone's not standing for it. And they have made the mistake of trying the wrong folks. You ain't got no backup in you. I don't hear any backup in this man either.
Well, it's a point where, you know, we're trying to do the civil thing by, you know, okay, they effectively they assaulted me. Okay, effectively
I saw them when they arrested you, dude. That was assault.
Exactly. They committed an act of unlawful arrest. They committed, you know, if they were not officers of the law, it would have been kidnapping, you know, but we can throw that, you know, we can throw that into official oppression under the Texas Penal Code. But, you know, I've got a couple of points here. These were points that I was actually going to bring up during my testimony. And one of them is the Supremacy Clause in Article 6 of the Constitution establishes that the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. You know, Murdoch versus Pennsylvania, no right can be licensed. That's not a cite. That's basically a, you know, it's a summary there.
Yeah.
Marbury versus Madison, contradictions to the Constitution are null and void. You've got Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham, Alabama. Licensing and fees can be ignored with impunity. That means that any licensing and fees for constitutional rights, the public has the freedom to ignore without being, you know, without being charged, without being held liable. Yeah. Exactly. Miranda versus Arizona. No legislation can nullify our rights. And yet they use these Miranda rights as you know, quote, BS. They try to play it as if you know, it's just part of the program, but no legislation can nullify the rights. And it's the officer's duty to stand between the government and the people. And I've got two more. Norton versus Shelby. The statutes, those statutes and codes, even the Texas Penal Code, they are not law if they contradict the Constitution. And that stands by verbatim inside of the Supreme Court. If the moment they are enacted, they are not law. If they contradict the Constitution, it's not up to the judges. It's not up to anybody to decide. If they contradict the Constitution, it's already null and void. And then you have Miller.
Right. Exactly. And you're coming right after what they're trying to do with the Second Amendment.
Travis.
Then you have Miller versus U.S., where exercising a right is not a crime.
Well, it cannot be converted to a crime. The free exercise of a right cannot be converted to a crime. Also, in Perry versus United States, 294 U.S. 353, 1935, Congress cannot revoke the sovereign power of the people.
So the thing is, anything that's contradictory to the Constitution, repugnant to the Constitution, or to the Supreme Court rulings which back and affirm the Constitution, they're acting in a state of lawlessness. And the problem is, gentlemen, here's the overlying problem. The police and the sheriffs, they do not understand that they are breaking the law.
I have a funny feeling that your friend there at the Capitol is fixing to find out how bad he broke the law.
Well, because of their training and because of their, you know, they're basically indoctrinated into this compartmentalized, you know, we're the police, we're here to do this and do that. You know, they're given directives. They don't understand that they're actually breaking the law because they're not provided that training, they're not provided that education unless they actually seek it out for themselves.
Well, let me give you a couple more sites, Travis. Cooper versus Aaron, 358 U.S. 1, 1958. No state legislator or executive or judicial officer can war against the Constitution without violating his undertaking to support it. And that goes to the oath of the Constitution when they're sworn into office. So
There
they
you go.
can't war against the very oath that they swore allegiance to, and that's Cooper
Well,
versus Aaron.
And I'm going to say something that some people may not like hearing, but, there was a certain individual who said that the penalty for treason is death, and you know what? He's absolutely right. It's in code. And those who war against the Constitution are actually warring against the people, and they are actually committing treason as they do it. So if they sign into legislature a law that is repugnant or contradicting the Constitution, they're committing treason, and yes, it just happens to be a fact that they can serve life in prison or be penalty, be subject to the death penalty. I mean, it's not a threat. It's not anything of that nature. It's just there is a penalty for such crimes.
That's what I don't understand. Every time somebody comes up with one of these laws and stuff, they bring a bill, to be voted on, and it is an infringement on a right. Let's just take the Second Amendment because it's close to my heart. And these people are coming up, and like right now, ATF is trying to ban ball ammunition. What a load. And that, but whoever came up with that, if they would go ahead and charge them with sedition and for treason, for trying to subvert the Constitution and it would stop a lot of this junk. People would back off trying to jack with our Constitution. It needs to be defended. These jackwads come in here and they think that they can go through, and because there's enough of them in one area, like they've done up in Washington State, to vote in something that is completely unconstitutional. Anybody that comes and brings a bill like that to be voted on, right when they bring it up, that's when they need to be arrested, and that's when they need to go to jail.
Well, here's another case site for you, Travis. Sneer versus Cullen, 481 F Federals 946. There can be no sanction or penalty imposed upon one because of the exercise of a constitutional right.
I'm familiar with it, brother.
US,
I've read it.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yes, sir.
State cannot.
You're absolutely.
I've got a lot of these quotes. I went through and found them when I was going through my case because, the government, even by their own standards, by their own case precedent, their own case laws decided by the Supreme Court, they still attempt to subvert our rights and still attempt to subject us to unlawful regulation and laws. Yeah. And I mean, it's not going to stop until we stop it. And that was one of my points of why I was coming up with a suggestion that, if we can't get along in their system, well, we're still United States citizens. We're still sovereign people. That's why I think we should stop and pull ourselves back, and we go ahead and reestablish communities where we understand the Constitution, where we understand the value of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and we don't allow them to inject themselves into our lives. We won't use public officials. We don't need, back in the old days, they had bucket brigades. We didn't need the fire department. Back in the old days, everybody self-policed. If you saw somebody assaulting or harming your neighbor, you stepped in and stepped up and did something. We didn't allow this stuff to happen because we cared about each other. And now, we've gotten so lazy and dependent on government, we expect them to do everything for us. And by doing that, we've allowed them to become tyrannical. And now they think that they're above us when in actuality they serve us. They are not our rulers. They are not our boss. They are bound and limited by the Constitution. We are not. They are. Well,
and I'm reading here Heath versus Boyd. This is Texas Supreme Court. Trespassing is not a felony or a breach of the peace. It is not one of those offenses for which the statute defining it gives the peace officer the right to arrest the offender without warrant. And that, we can argue law. That was prior to the, statute and everything of that nature. But the problem is, like you said, Sheriff versus Cullen, for a crime to exist, there must be an injured party. There can be no sanction or penalty imposed upon one because of an exercise of a constitutional right. In my case in particularly, it was a, First Amendment right of free speech, and there is no law on the books, period, no policy, no written statement whatsoever that has been published that says you cannot take a toy gun to the Capitol.
Well, that would be ludicrous. I mean, seriously, I can't even believe we're sitting here talking about it. And I was really shocked when I had found out that you had been arrested for that. It was like, I couldn't, at first I really couldn't even figure out what the hell kind of charge. I thought, well, maybe Travis had a traffic ticket or something stupid. You know what I mean? I thought it had to be some stupid oversight maybe that you had on your behalf that would allow them to arrest you, because I know the criminal trespass won't hold water, because I know the procedures that have to be followed for you to be arrested for criminal trespass. And then when I found out it was criminal trespass, I was like, oh, my God, there's no way.
Well, the problem is here, there have actually been 7, I don't have the exact number, but it's 7 to 9 cases over the past year at the Capitol for very similar instances that have all been dismissed. They've been charged, they've been arrested, but all of these cases have been dismissed because they had no merit. And the problem we're seeing here in Texas at the Capitol in Austin is that Region 7 DPS is continuing to break the law and violate people's rights, and they're not being held accountable. That's the main focus.
I think it should be everybody's point to make. They need to be brought to accountability.
Yeah.
This, Travis.
Your case just brings it to light how blatant it is.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something else, Travis. I don't know if you know, but I used to ride in a motorcycle club, and DPS, where I'm from, every time they saw me on my motorcycle, it was like a game. Hey, let's pull KC over. And so they used to jam me up every single time I passed a DPS trooper. It was guaranteed I was fixing to get pulled over. You know how I stopped it? I started sending I started filing complaints against DPS and sending them in. Because every complaint you make across about a DPS officer, whether they substantiate that complaint or not, it goes into their permanent record, and it gives them a harder time to get a raise and to get a promotion, and it affects their pension. So I would highly suggest each and every person that was there that witnessed what happened to you, all file complaints against that DPS trooper. Fill his jacket up with complaints. I'm not saying make up anything or lie or be untruthful, but by God, he needs to answer for that, and it needs to be on his record that he did that to a citizen, that he violated the law. And then
a lot of people saw it on the news.
Absolutely.
It was,
I saw it on the news, so I witnessed it.
Yeah. And there were witnesses there that day. It was not. This is not in a back alley somewhere or on a street corner where nobody saw it. This was blatant, like you said. It was out in the open. And the hypocrisy, the funny thing about this is, I had 2 pocket knives. I carry them on me anywhere I go. And they didn't have any problem with the pocket knives. They had a problem with my toy, revolver. It was a, old Western style cap gun with an orange tip. And they didn't have a problem with my knives. So real weapons they had no problem with, but a toy gun they had a problem with. And they can't interfere with due process. They can't interfere with my ability to reach out to my representatives and to speak on the bill that's being heard that day. And they did. They violated due process of law. They violated my civil rights and my freedom of speech.
Absolutely.
And
Here's
if there was
another
more
case,
than
Perry versus United States. The innocent individual who is harmed by an abuse of governmental authority is assured that he will be compensated for his injury.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to take this to wherever this goes. We are currently in the fight here. It's a criminal case, and we'll see where it goes, and then afterwards we'll see if we can seek damages. Because the problem is here, people are saying, we've got a lot of support, and I want to thank you first, everyone out there who has supported what we're doing out there. I want to let it be known, if I can let it be known now, here and now, I didn't go to the Capitol to get arrested. That was not in my daily schedule. I went to the Capitol with the 2-minute, hearing testimony, and I just happened to get arrested while I was walking through the front door. And these officers, unfortunately, have been getting away with breaking the law. Any other ordinary person walking down the street would not be afforded the same leeway, and these officers should be held to a higher standard because they're not ignorant. They deal with this on a daily basis, and that's the problem. They are getting a free ride, and they need to be held accountable and to a higher standard.
Oh, absolutely. And you've even got
I don't think it's not actually a higher standard. Just apply the dang law the way it's written. Crud.
Well, and you've got federal violations against them. Title 18 U.S.C. Section 241. The statute makes it unlawful for two or more persons to conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate a person of any state, territory, or district in the free exercise and enjoyment of a right or privilege secured to him, her, by the Constitution or the laws of the United States, because of him exercising the same. Title 18 U.S.C. Section 242, deprivation of rights. You've got that.
And the thing is,
that
that's criminal charges.
And anybody else that told him to do that.
And that's criminal charges, and that's federal charges. Yeah, exactly. That's federal charges. That's separate from the Constitution of the state of Texas and the Texas Penal Code. These are two separate issues, but the thing is, most DAs, whether they be a sheriff or a Texas Ranger or, an FBI agent, they're going to look at this and they're going to say, well, this is one of our guys, and we're not going to pursue this. And so we've got to let them know that the people will not be swayed. We will not be tread upon whenever it comes to our rights and our duties. If any man goes out there on the street and they handcuff somebody and throw them into a car and transport them to another facility and they get caught, they are going to be, facing life in prison for kidnapping and assault. But yet, if one of these officers does it, they don't even get so much as a slap on the wrist. It's just business as usual. This is the problem. We've got to change the culture.
I agree.
Absolutely.
And it's
People
still
need to start
kidnapping, whether they did it or not. That's the problem. They committed kidnapping. They took you unlawfully and illegally against your will and put you in a jail cell when you have not violated the law. I mean, you can't get any. I mean, what's the difference in taking you to a dungeon, taking you to my garage, taking you to my basement? There is no difference. Except they have a more secure facility. So, I mean, it is extremely ridiculous that they would even think that they could get away with this. I'll tell you somebody to try, and I'll try to make a contact for you, is the Rutherford Institute. Have you heard of them before?
I'm not really too familiar with them, no.
the Rutherford Institute, they are big-time civil rights attorneys. And I tried to get them, in my case, to sue the federal government for what they've done as far as the theft of my property, the deprivation of my rights. But I have to wait till the criminal part's gone, and then they'll go in the civil.
Okay.
But with yours, I mean, it's so blatantly obvious, and it's so minimal in nature. They're going to have it would be an easy thing for them to turn around and file a huge lawsuit for you. And they work off a contingency, and the Rutherford Institute is kind of like that guy that's on Fox News. He's also got, the heck's the name of his, oh, man, he's always on Fox News. He has the Heritage Foundation, I believe it is.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, there's several.
Well, the thing is, here we're facing the same thing because, okay, and I don't have the case law in front of me, but I have read it before. An individual has the ability and the authority to resist an unlawful arrest, okay? If you as a witness are, actually watching somebody who's engaged in a criminal act, it doesn't matter if they have a badge or not, and they are guilty of an unlawful arrest and you're sitting there witnessing it, the Supreme Court has backed it up that you have the ability to stop that unlawful arrest and to take that person out of the custody of those officers. Now, does anybody do that today? Of course not, because everybody's worried about getting shot. But the problem is that we've got some bad apples within our law enforcement community, and this is not all of law enforcement, because I'm a big advocate of law enforcement. I'm a big advocate of the sheriff's department. Only those that are actually upholding the law, obeying their oaths, and protecting the people, defending the Constitution, and upholding the rule of law. Everyone else, they're criminals, and they need to be held accountable.
Absolutely.
And you'll find that police officers feel the same way about it.
Well, I've got several friends that are law enforcement, and we've had this rhetorical debate. The problem is, at the current time, there's more crooked cops than there are good cops, and that's why the good cops can't do anything about it. You see all the stories in the news. When the good cop stands up against the crooked cop, the good cop is villainized and destroyed and lose their job for a cop, leaving the crooked cops to continue to be crooked.
Well, and I hate to say that. I hate to say that because I would love to say that, it's just, I mean, that's the general saying, I guess. There's just a few bad apples and we've got to weed them out. I mean, unfortunately, I'd hate to say that 75% of the police force is probably crooked. I don't have any statistics to back it up. I've just got life experience to understand it. But we've got to weed out the bad apples, and it doesn't matter how much work it takes. We've got to get in there and talk to these officers. We've got to educate them. We've got to create lasting relationships with the police chiefs and with the sheriffs to institute, re-education programs where we're training these officers on constitutional principles and understanding of the law.
And that comes right back to what Kc was talking about getting into our communities and digging into our communities and working within our communities, making these oases across our country.
We
where
can't
the Constitution is upheld.
We can't fix what's in Washington.
I want you to go ahead and give a shout out to that New Mexico sheriff that you were telling me about that was making his deputies go through a constitutional training course. Travis found a sheriff in New Mexico that was doing just that to make sure that his deputies were, informed and knowledgeable of the Constitution. And I think that is outstanding. That's something that we should push all of our sheriffs to do.
Yeah, that's
Well,
something
you think that would be
I'm
one of
working
the
on myself.
curriculums whenever they're going through their training, through school.
Yeah.
Through
It's not, though. They're not, everybody, it doesn't matter if they're law enforcement or legislative. Unfortunately, I don't care how many enemies I make. You mentioned the Constitution, and their eyes just glaze over. But if we can start to institute these training programs, I believe, I don't have the information in front of me, but I believe it was Sheriff London with it might have been Lee County or somewhere around the southeast New Mexico border. But, I just read a story, and, guys like, Sheriff Mack of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, this is what they are fighting for, is to get the sheriffs educated so that they can get their deputies educated so that we can start going back to the way that things are supposed to be, because we can't fix Washington. We've got to start at our local communities, and if anybody listening here is not doing anything in their local communities, then I'm going to tell you right now, you're absolutely wrong, because you've got to get involved with your local community. You can't sit on the couch and watch football and complain on Facebook, because if something's wrong in your local community and you're not doing anything about it, you're guilty.
Then you become part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's complacency.
Problem. Yep.
Yes.
Complacency and apathy.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's another reason why I want to salute you, Travis, is because you are doing a lot to try to unify our state, and you're doing a lot with the open carry movement. I mean, you're an outstanding patriot, and I'm glad to know you. I'm glad to call you a friend, and I hope to communicate more often with you, because you, like myself and like James too, we're men that have shown through our actions that we care about this country and what's going on. We're not just all lip service, just like all this Facebook crap. There's those of us that commit to action, and I commend you for your action, because you do get physically involved. You spend your money, your time, you take away from your family. Like you just said, you live in West Texas, but you drove all the way to Austin to try to do this, and then they turn around and arrest you. So I do commend you, and you are an outstanding Texan and an American, and I'm proud to know you.
Well, I appreciate that, sir, and that's humbling just to hear you say it. I mean, I don't have any kind of response, because I can't live up to the words you're speaking right now, but all I can do is just day by day try to make an impact and be a positive influence. And if I could only, wish and pray that every man out there would do the same thing. I can sit here and make plans. We can talk about strategy. We can make phone calls to legislators. There's guys out there that are doing a lot of things, a lot of good things, I like to commend, Pastor Terry Holcomb from Texas Carry, Executive Director. He's out there fighting a good fight. First Sergeant retired C.J. Grisham out there fighting a good fight. Guys like Bonnie Leak out of San Angelo, fighting a good fight. There's thousands out there who are trying to make an impact, and we've just got to we can't give up. Even if 85% of the population is against us, the constitutional republic will stand, and the righteousness of God-given rights versus the privileges that the government thinks that they can give us will prevail eventually. And there's no ifs, ands, or about it. Truth is always truth, and, tyranny is always tyranny.
And it's spelled out real clearly in our Constitution.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's all we can do is we need to try to draw others into the fight and one of the things that I try to tell people, or I try to express to people, is we've got to quit arguing or fighting about our differences and look at what we have in common. And the common thread is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We need to come together on those common threads and quit focusing on our differences, because that's part of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What I may consider fine for me, you may not like, but you have to accept that as long as I'm not infringing upon you.
Well, I've got a code for anyone who's listening. I've got something for everybody to look up, because I've got to run. I've got to take care of some family business before I lay it down for the night. But I tell you what, look up the Texas Transportation Code. And if you know anything about the administrative code or the operational codes, the Texas Transportation Code is what basically all DPS and all officers obey in accordance with the day-to-day routines on the road. And if you look up Texas Transportation Code 201, that's 201, and I believe it's .904, 201.904, that sounds about right. It'll say speed signs.
Yep.
And I'm just gonna leave you with that right there, because the speed signs out there on the road are not for day-to-day travelers; they're only for commercial traffic.
Absolutely.
And that right there will give you a glimpse at how deep the tyranny is. And 5 or 10 years ago, I had no clue, but I started to do my research. And once you start doing your research, you'll find out that we are in a lot worse shape than you really believe that we are.
You're absolutely right. I've been on that mission, looking through the transportation code myself. And, one thing that they taught me in the third grade, and I'm pretty sure, I know I'm older than Travis, but you probably still got taught the same thing, is that when we were doing vocabulary words in the third grade, and we had to define our vocabulary words, one of the number one rules is you cannot use the word you're defining in the definition.
Yeah.
Well, go read Texas statutes. They use the word they're defining in the definition, which you cannot do that, because that is even more confusing. How can you?
I'll throw something else at you, and that's Title 18. Because if you receive, I don't know what county, every county is a little bit different, but most places in Texas, and I don't know about other states, but I can tell you about Texas, you've got you've got a ticket, for a traffic violation or whatever it is, and most likely down at the bottom is going to reference Title 18, because Title 18 is the U.S. code that deals with criminal basically statutes. I don't have the words for it right now, but anyway, it's the
that's the criminal code of the United States government, 18 U.S.C.
Yeah. So if you go to 18 U.S.C. and you go to Section 31, where it talks about the definitions, that thing that you brought up, KC, is exactly right, because the problem is in the definitions of Title 18, Section 31, it lists motor vehicle as that which is used for profit and commercial purposes only. And then you go down even a little bit further, and it defines commercial purposes as profit for, tractor trailers and buses and taxis. And so that term, motor vehicle, unfortunately, is not what they believe it to be, and they're just uneducated on the subject matter. I mean, you can even go to
Webster's robbed ever since.
Yeah, you can even go to Webster's dictionary. Well, I don't think they do. I think 95% of the police force out there does not know the difference, because they're not taught the difference, and they don't even have a care to look it up. That's just my personal opinion. But you can even go to Webster's dictionary and you can look up the term operate and you can look up the term drive, and neither one of those have to do with with traveling to and from any destination. It's always operating a motor vehicle or driving, which is the definition being operating a motor vehicle. It's all about semantics. But the problem
and
is
a driver
the
is for a team of horses or mules.
Well, it's for commercial purposes.
Right.
And so the problem is here that we've been hoodwinked into believing that everywhere we go we need a driver's license. Well, that's asking permission for something that we have a right to do, and that goes right back to those case laws that I cited earlier. We don't have to ask permission for a right, and we have the right to travel. And that's just one example because it's easily identifiable in the U.S. Code and in the Texas statute. That's the easiest thing that I can show anyone. And I'll tell you what, it opens up a rabbit hole. And once you start digging, and once you go down that rabbit hole, it doesn't stop. You're going to hit another one and another one and another one. And the problem is that we are deep into tyranny in 2015, and there's 95% of the population that don't even understand that we're there.
Oh, I understand. Believe me, one of the biggest mistakes the federal government made was giving me too much time to investigate the laws, and that's why I know them like I do. They should have just let me get killed on the border. But since they decided to give so much time to sit here and study and go over all this stuff, it was a grievous mistake on their behalf.
Well, hey, gentlemen, I appreciate the time to tell my story. I've got to run, though.
Thank you,
well, Travis. You take care. It was good to meet you.
Hey, God bless you. Y'all have a good evening.
You too,
good
sir.
Night.
Thank you.
Wow, that was an experience. I enjoyed talking to Travis. I saw that on TV, man. What happened to him, and I had no idea that I would have the opportunity to speak to him. And when you talk to him and you find out just exactly what the deal was, jeez, how is that DPS officer still employed? How is whoever told him to do that still employed? That's going to be a good curiosity to see if they can be unemployed.
I know. I completely agree, man. I mean, it's ridiculous. I've been working on a little script. I hate to even go into it because of the fact that, our problems are way greater than this right to travel. I was talking to Gary Hunt. A lot of you guys, in case you don't know, Gary Hunt has been very instrumental in helping to get my story out and to be able to articulate it in a way that people can easily understand the laws and the codes that they're trying to use against me. And he's written a bunch of articles. His stuff can be found at outpost-of-freedom.com, and or you can go to my Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com Kevin Kc Massey, or facebook.com/free Kc Massey. That's FREEKC MASSEY. And I've got a lot of Gary's stuff on there. And Gary is he's written a lot of stuff to keep it in perspective. And the government has lost their mind. But about this right to travel, that's so minimal compared to all the other things that we've got to worry about first. I mean, the right to travel is a basic right, and we all have it. But, out of all the rights that they're trying to steal from us, that's the one that I'm least worried about at this time. I mean, our freedom is way more important. And look what they did to...
When the shit hits the fan, they're going to really try to curtail that right to travel. I guarantee that.
Yeah, but at that point, it's not going to matter.
It's gone too far.
When the shit hits the fan, the right to travel is not going to matter at all, because then we're going to be in complete lawlessness. So, I mean, I don't look forward, and nor do I want for the, quote, shit to hit the fan. If we don't come together and figure out a peaceful solution, and that's why I advocate trying to come together in self-governing communities. If we don't do that, we are going to be in for some major problems, because there's a lot of us, and yourself, myself, and Travis, and a lot of other patriots, that we are sick to death of being dictated to how we need to live, and to try to restrict our God-given, creator-endowed, unalienable rights. And we're just not going to keep taking it. And the most peaceful way I know is to try to, because you can't, like I said before, you can't be a horse to water and make him drink. So if your neighbor doesn't want to live a free and peaceful life, if he wants to have the tyranny of the government and the control of the government over their life, we can't force them to be free. But those of us that want to be free, we need to come together and build our own
at the same time, they cannot
force us to
conform.
We will govern and rule our own community. We don't need the government to tell us what to do.
Well, I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. You know, the Constitution, you know, it defends my rights. And because the Constitution defends my rights, I defend the Constitution. So everybody has taken an oath at one time or another to this country. And if you haven't, get yourself in line, get it done.
Yep. I wrote this little script. Check it out. We're running in the overtime now.
Oops.
Yeah, that's all right. We did that all the time before. Hey, here's my little script. This is for dealing with the traffic stop. And I'll go ahead and throw it out there. It says, this is how you start it out. When you get pulled over, first thing you want to do is make sure that all your windows are rolled up and your door's locked. When the officer approaches your window, you roll your window down no more than 2.5 inches. If the officer asks you to go ahead and roll your window down a little further, you just tell them, I can hear you fine, officer, and I'm comfortable with the window at its current level. They cannot make you roll the window down any further. And plus, if the window's only rolled down that far and no other windows open, it's impossible for them to get a cross draft where they can say, well, I smelled marijuana, or I smelled alcohol, or I smelled whatever. Because with the window at that level and all the others rolled up, there's no way for any odor to escape your vehicle. But one of the first things when the officer pulls you over, the very first thing you should say to him as he gets to your window is say, for the record, officer, can I get your name and badge number? And then when he gives it to you, Officer Jones, badge 123, is there a recording of this encounter? Are you recording this stop? Are you sure that your audio and video equipment is functioning properly? And is your camera and audio turned on and working properly to the best of your knowledge? If he says, whatever he says, yes, no, whatever, then you say, Officer Jones, badge 123, what is the emergency and how may I help you? Well, I pulled you over for speeding. You were doing 70. Then you say, Officer Jones, badge 123, what are the facts that you're alleging gave you the probable cause to stop me? Well, I told you I pulled you over for speeding. Then you tell the officer, Officer Jones, badge 123, do you have a properly signed and issued warrant to search me or my property? And if so, may I see it? No. Well, then, Officer Jones, badge 123, do you have a properly signed and issued warrant of arrest that accurately describes the name, that names me or describes me as a person to be arrested? And if so, may I see it? No, I pulled you over for speeding. Okay, Officer Jones, for the record, I am not operating in a for-hire capacity by engaging in any form of transportation or other commercial use of the highways or roadways. Officer Jones, please acknowledge that you have been so informed. And he may not say anything. Well, then you'd say, Officer Jones, am I under a custodial arrest? If he says no, okay, if I'm not under arrest, am I free to go? Well, no, I've still got to do this speeding ticket. I need to see your driver's license and insurance. Officer Jones, what is your articulable probable cause that leads you to believe that I've committed a crime or that I'm about to commit a crime that authorizes you to stop and detain or arrest me? Well, you were speeding. For the record, Officer Jones, in order to protect my rights and not to waive by accident or error, I wish to clarify my legal standing in this situation. You said I am not free to go, so I must conclude that I'm under a custodial arrest and simply not in an investigative detention. Therefore, I am invoking all of my fundamentally protected rights, including my right to remain silent and my right to have counsel present before answering any questions. From this point forward, I do not consent to providing you with any information or documentation that could or will be used against me in a court of law or to possibly incriminate me. So please don't ask me to produce anything and give it to you. From this point forward, please do not ask me to answer any questions or to perform any type of test to any matter whatsoever without my lawyer present. Officer Jones, do you intend to harm, injure, punish me by any method of assault, arrest, or incarceration because I have invoked these fundamentally protected rights? No, but I need to see your driver's license. For the record, Officer Jones, no law is valid if it requires me in any way to waive a fundamentally protected right in order to exercise or any other right or alleged privilege. No law can convert the free exercise of my rights into a crime. I've repeatedly informed you that I've chosen not to waive any of my fundamentally protected rights. So again, I ask, Officer Jones, do you intend to harm, injure, or punish me by any method of assault, arrest, or incarceration because I've invoked these fundamentally rights? Well, I need to see your driver's license. I need to see your insurance. Officer Jones, due to your attitude and demeanor and your continued threats to possibly falsify charges and commit acts of violence against me or my property while displaying a deadly weapon, I feel physically threatened and I'm in fear of my life. I demand that you cease and desist. I request the immediate presence of your supervisor. I do not consent to any of your actions, the use of force against me or my property, or being forced to exit my car for any purpose, especially so that you may attempt to steal my property and or assault, injure, or kill me. Officer Jones, you are fully aware that I've already invoked my fundamentally protected rights to remain silent and my right to counsel. Do you intend to continue in your unlawful efforts to violate my rights? It is my belief that the information you're demanding may possibly be used against me in a court of law or in an attempt to incriminate me. If this is so, then upon advice of legal counsel, I must respectfully decline to provide you with any information or evidence that can and will possibly be used against me for those purposes. Officer Jones, I'm again asking you, do you intend to continue to deny me of my rights and falsely imprison me, or am I free to go? And then, usually by now he's getting pretty pissed off. And it's like, well, hell, I smell beer in your car. Officer Jones, your statement is blatantly false and an outright lie. You are now trying to fabricate probable cause by making false statements into the record and false allegations against me. I do not consent to being detained for any additional time or other purpose. Am I free to go, or are you going to continue to illegally terrorize me beyond the time needed to conclude this alleged transportation code violation stop? And then if they, persist in doing it again, then you go back to for the record, Officer Jones. No law is valid if it requires me in any way to waive my fundamentally protected right in order to exercise any other right or alleged privilege. No law can convert the free exercise of my rights into a crime. I have repeatedly informed you that I have chosen not to waive any of my fundamentally protected rights. So I ask you again, Officer Jones, do you intend to harm, injure, punish me by any method of assault, arrest, or incarceration because I invoke these fundamentally protected rights?
Is that it?
Well, you can keep looping it through till either they smash your window out or they let you go.
And drag you out of the car.
Yep.
Would you send that to me, Mrs. Terry? Would you send that to me, Casey?
Yeah, what's your email address?
Well, can you just put it straight to my wall, or
on Facebook?
Yeah.
Or
you can send it to my email. I'll give you my email.
I'd rather send it to email because I don't want. I mean, I know the cops can hear this and they're going to, be able to say, well, we need to figure out a way to counter that, because what I said is completely and 100% true and correct. And you do have the right against self-incrimination. And if you give them anything, any document, if you surrender your driver's license, you are then proving that you have signed into the commercial code because you have a, quote, driver's license. So you've already incriminated yourself, and you can't get out of it because you've admitted you're a driver and you've shown that you have paid the fee and signed the contract by signing that driver's license. So you do not want to give them that driver's license. You don't want to give them insurance because even though some state laws say that you're presumed guilty unless you show this proof of insurance, that is against the Constitution, because by the Constitution you're presumed innocent until proven guilty, and the assumption of guilt cannot be made nor used. You have to prove it. Failure to identify here in Texas is Penal Code Section 3802, failure to identify. A person commits an offense if he intentionally refuses to give his name, address, and date of birth to a peace officer who has lawfully arrested the person and requested the information. So you have to be arrested for another charge. They can't try to get this information from you without arresting you for another charge before this charge, because you haven't given them any incriminating evidence to charge you with. And at that, you're only required by law, especially here in Texas, to give them your name, address, and birth date. You're not required to produce any formal form of ID, even though the cops will try to bully you and tell you that. But if you want to send me a message on Facebook, Terry, so that I have it and you don't have to put it out over the airwaves, that would be fine too.
Okay. I'll do that then.
Yeah, just message me on Facebook and then I'll email it to you, the whole script. And all this stuff mainly pertains to Texas. I put a lot of, like here in Texas, a lot of people don't understand speeding, not only the part that Travis mentioned, but according to Texas Transportation Code 545.351, the maximum speed requirement, may not drive a vehicle at a speed greater than is reasonable and prudent under the conditions, and having regard for actual and potential hazards than existing, and, notice the word and, shall control the speed of the vehicle as necessary to avoid colliding with another person or vehicle that is on or entering the highway in compliance with the law, and the duty of each person to use due care. So in other words, here in Texas, speeding alone, despite the fact that it's a transportation code, transportation means you're engaged in commercial activity, but speeding alone by Texas statute is not illegal. You have to be speeding at a speed greater than is reasonable and prudent, and you have to cause an accident. So while part of the allegation may be made that you were speeding and you were going
cause an accident
above, yes, key word. They may say and allege that you were going at a speed greater than reasonable and prudent, but if you did not cause an accident, you are not guilty under Texas law for speeding, and that's 545.351.
I like that.
Ain't that sick in the teeth?
And in Texas,
I'm telling you.
The Penal Code, Article 1.04, due course of law. No citizen of this state shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property, privileges, or immunities, or in any manner disenfranchised except by due course of law of the land. And what that means is they can't deprive you of any of your rights. The right to remain silent, the right of self-incrimination, the right to search without warrant. You know, that covers your Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, which is self-incrimination by talking, by telling them, and by handing them evidence that could be used against you, and illegal search and seizure without warrant. Now, they'll try to bully you into it or trick you into it, but here in Texas, there is law that covers that.
And if I'm not mistaken, if they proceed and arrest you and all that stuff, and they have violated your rights and all that, they have a bond that you can go back on. It's pretty substantial when you get the bond.
The main reason that this script was written by a lawyer. And let me give his name because he does deserve credit for it. I just went through and rewrote it slightly. But it's still, he's the one that came up with it. He deserves the full credit. His name is Eddie Craig. No, his name is Eddie Craig. He's the one that came up with this. And the script is basically designed so that if you have all of this recorded, you have major civil rights violation in a federal lawsuit against that officer, especially if you have a recording and you go by what I said to the T. You have given them every opportunity to not violate your rights. And when they do, it's flagrant and blatant. And then you have recourse, a federal lawsuit.
I got to learn that one.
I would give him that name again, KC, so he can Google that name. And if it's the same guy that I'm thinking about, he teaches courses. Yes,
he does.
The course, it's a nominal fee for the course, but should you get pulled over or something like that, they actually will be on the phone with you and help you verbatim through your. If it's the same guy I'm thinking about, they help you through the court thing with maybe even with the traffic stop. But it's not a very expensive course. It's like $350 or $400, something like that, if it's that much, and it's well worth it. Just to have your eyes opened up to the transportation code and Black's Book of Legal Definitions. That's a kicker.
Yeah, because that's another thing. Eddie Craig, yes.
Okay.
And he's out of Texas, out of Austin.
You know, it seems to me over the past few years here, in observation, that there seems to be more resistance against the tyranny in this nation. It seems to be like Texas is the point. Like Texas is on point. You know what I'm saying? And I've actually considered moving to Texas due to that fact. I know a lot of people are standing up across the nation, and it seems more every day. I've turned a couple liberals around. I got one right now in such a state of confusion. I had to say a prayer for her. She's just, that cognitive dissonance. It hits them. They can't handle it sometimes. But that can't be. That's, something they've learned all their life. It's like,
and then when they find out they've been lied to, they are completely indignant with the people that have been perpetrating the lie that they have fallen into. They feel so betrayed and cheated, and it's a rude awakening. But God bless them when they can't open their eyes.
Well,
here's something else too. Like here in Texas, our legislators are just as corrupt and crooked as the ones in Washington. And one of the fallacies that they're trying to push on the citizens here is they're acting like they're going to stand up to the federal government by saying, we're going to make a law against all federal gun law. Well, guess what? The feds don't have a gun law. There is no federal gun law on the books because the federal government does not have that enumerated power. They have the power to regulate commerce, to levy tax, and to protect the border and have an army. Those are the powers of the government. Now, they've stretched that out and came up with the EPA, DOE, DOJ, FBI, CIA, NSA, blah, 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 blah. But there are no gun laws on the federal books. They try to use commerce as a way to control guns. But for our legislators to stand up and say, well, you know, we're going to fight them on gun laws. Well, they don't have any gun laws, so what are you fighting them on? You can't take an enumerated power from the government. The government has the right and the power through the Constitution to regulate commerce. So it doesn't matter what law you write, you will not be able to stop their enumerated power of regulating commerce, which is where they try to restrict firearms. So you can sit here and blow smoke all day long. Oh, we're going to stop federal gun laws. You can't. You cannot do it because you don't have the right to take a power that was granted to the government through the Constitution. So it's just a feel-good thing. It's bull crap.
Absolutely. And that's the nice part about, you know, the Second Amendment. It's shall not be infringed. And when it comes back, that's why I was so concerned with the constitutional carry, the law that's coming up for open carry here in Texas, whether it was the constitutional carry or whether it was the watered-down version. If you've got a concealed carry permit, you can also open carry. Well, it's a step in the right direction, but it's not constitutional carry. We need to get back to our constitutional laws. We need to get back to constitutional governing people and back to what Kc talks about a lot is if there is no injury to a person, there is no crime.
That's exactly right.
Get back to it, folks. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to be. Why are you allowing it to be something else?
Well, the government has no right at all to tell us what we can and can't do as far as those rights. Now, here in Texas, though, to be honest and you know, to be forthright about it, they, by our Constitution, do have the right to regulate the wearing of arms within view, and that is in our Texas Constitution. So
yes,
they do have the right to say whether we can open carry constitutionally in Texas. But where they're screwing us is they are trying to regulate the wearing of concealed arms, and they do not have that power by the Constitution. They can only regulate the wearing of arms with a view, open arms. And so
actually, so what you're saying is they've got the script flipped right now.
Oh,
you're supposed to be able to, according to the Texas Constitution, you're supposed to be able to conceal carry anytime, anywhere, without a permit.
That's right. That is an absolute
no
fact.
way.
As a matter of fact, yeah.
No, you're bullshitting me.
Well, in Ohio, no, it's been 2 years ago, they passed a law that you can carry inside a tavern. Remember, I don't care where you went, you weren't allowed to carry a concealed weapon into a bar.
Right.
But now in the state of Ohio, you can't partake of alcohol while in the bar, you know.
That makes sense. I don't want to be around somebody that's drunk with a gun.
I've been around a lot of drunks. Everybody carrying pistols, no problem.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You'd be surprised how polite society can be.
Yeah. Well, he's carrying a 44, and I only got this little 38. I'm not going to mess with it. But shall not be infringed. Key one. Our Constitution is our guide on. That is our point. That's our guide on. That's what I tell people. Keep that as your guide on. Constitution. Know your constitutional. And that right now in this country, it's like they're flipping, they're reversing the order. Satan is that one who seeks to reverse the order which was established by God. And I do believe He established our nation. And you see it, in the last days, He will show Himself. What's that in the White House? That's the way I view Him. That usurper cockroach. I'm getting a little wild up there.
Well, but you got to give Him at least credit for this. He didn't lie to us. He told us that He was going to fundamentally change America. He did say that.
Yeah, a lot of times, over and over.
So,
and they still voted for Him.
He said that. He told us what He was going to do.
Well, yeah, and I see a lot of people, they'll go, well, he is such a dummy. He is crazy. What an idiot.
Shit.
Man, what a fool. No, he's
crazy
not.
Crazy like a fox.
Yeah, crazy like a fox. and they're not stopping for shit, Sarge. They're coming.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, they've had a lot of time since the end of World War II to put the communists in positions in our government to write rules that are affecting our everyday life that they didn't have the right to do, and that needs to get changed.
They still don't have the right to do it. They just choose
to do it
outside of their realm of authority. You know, like I keep trying to impress upon people, the Constitution limits government. It does not grant power to the people. It has nothing to do with us other than the fact that it puts on written paper our Creator-endowed, unalienable rights. So nowhere in there does it give them any power over us. It gives us power over them, the power of the people over the government. The government works for us. But they've dumbed us down so much, and people have become so apathetic to where now we think that they control us when it's really quite the opposite.
Well, it's supposed to be the opposite.
The government's saying, hey, you know what? You want the American dream? We're going to let you go into hock over your head. We're going to let you buy a house that's 10 times beyond your means, and that we're going to finance you and that. And as long as you don't jack with us and you don't start, wanting to run things, we're going to give you the American dream. Well, dude, that's not the American dream, to be enslaved by having to go to work every day to produce something just so you can pay their taxes. That's not the way it was supposed to be.
Well,
that's not the American dream. The American dream is to be able to take nothing, to just your wits and your skill, and to be able to live in a manner that you want to be accustomed to. You can buy land in England and France and everywhere else. You had to have your land given to you from a principality. You couldn't own it otherwise. In America, you could have land. In America, you could work at your craft and enjoy the profit from that you have toiled. You could enjoy the profit of your labor, and they couldn't take it away from you. And that's what upset England and Europe so bad about America. That's why they hate our Constitution. And that's why they have tried so hard over these last 20, 30 years to get in here and corrupt our system and turn it in on us and to destroy us. Well, it's not going to work.
Well,
our Constitution is in place to protect us.
Here in Texas.
And we will defend our Constitution.
The Texas Constitution, Section 23, the right to keep and bear arms. Every citizen shall have the right to keep and bear arms in the lawful defense of himself or the state. But the legislature shall have the power by law to regulate the wearing of arms with a view to prevent crime. that is the Section 23 of the Texas Constitution.
That's
Section
tricky.
24, military subordinate to civil authority. The military shall at all times be subordinate to the civil authority.
So our state government is over all the military that goes around here. Wow.
Section 19 of the Texas State Constitution, deprivation of life, liberty, etc., due course of law. No citizen of this state shall be deprived of life, liberty, property, privileges, or immunities in any manner disenfranchised except by due course of the law of the land. So that goes to reinforce what I was saying in that script about not having to give up any information to the cops, because by giving them that information, you're giving them the opportunity and you're giving them evidence that could be used against you in a court. And they cannot
you
compel
give them the
you
definition
to
of the law of the land.
The law of the land is the Constitution.
Yep, supreme law. Exactly.
Absolutely.
So there's no question about what law of the land they're talking about. The law of the land, that's not a rule that a community has come up with and passed through committee and said, okay, we're going to have this rule, and whether it be for speeding or speed traps or whatever, and that if it goes against the Constitution of the United States. So the law of the land, don't get it confused with rules and regulations that have been imposed.
Okay, well, like Travis, under the Texas Constitution, Section 27, right of assembly, petition for redress of grievances. The citizens shall have the right, in a peaceful manner, to assemble together for their common good and apply those invested with the powers of government for redress and other purposes by petition, address, or remonstrance, whatever that means.
So that's the one that pertains to Travis, right there.
Yeah, that's
what happened in Austin.
Constitution. Yep.
Wow.
I want to step back.
I really don't think that DPS officer is going to have a job for very long. I mean, if they press it, I mean, it sounds like I mean, I pity the fool. Not good.
Well, unfortunately, I bet you he's going to get away with it just because of the corruption of this state.
Yeah, that does rear its ugly head, especially in Austin. Well, when they say keep Austin weird, they need to rethink that.
Yep. No, I agree. But what do? Short of pulling ourselves out of the system and having our own self-governance. Section 1 of the Texas Bill of Rights, Article 1, Section 1, freedom and sovereignty of the state. Texas is a free and independent state, subject only to the Constitution of the United States and the maintenance of our free institutions and the perpetuity of the Union. Depend upon the preservation of the rights of local self-government unimpaired to all the states. See, and that goes along with the 10th Amendment right. All powers not granted to the government through the Constitution shall remain with the people and the state. So, I mean, they coming after me with what they're doing. They're violating Texas Constitution, U.S. Constitution. I mean,
but will they get away with it? And I hope not.
When is your court date? 27th?
24th of March.
24th. Okay. My welfare check come out. I'll send you a nickel or two, brother. I get a disability check monthly. That's my income. I don't work anymore, so it's tight for me. As many people live across this country, it's tight.
I tell you what,
there's a lot of people living that way, brother.
I appreciate you offering to send me something, Terry, but really, that's fine. You don't need to send me anything. God's taking care of me. God's providing for me. I have full confidence and faith in God that everything's going to work out the way it needs to. You know, money, unfortunately, is not going to get this situation resolved. I've got a good public defender. If the motions that he's put forth don't work, then I have little faith that the system's going to work, period, and no amount of money will buy that.
That's a fact.
You know,
they're either going to adhere to the rule of law or they're not. If they do, he's a free man because they've done nothing but wrong towards him. And if that's not what they're going to follow, then there's no help for him or us.
Well,
so
you need
it's a point of fact. It's a point of fact that if they do it to KC, hang on, buddy, because they're fixing to do it to you too.
Yeah. I don't see how they can
appreciate your offer. I don't either, but I don't see how they could put me through this cruel and unusual punishment, just like the conditions of my release. You know, the conditions of my release are that I'm remanded to the custody of my home. I'm supposed to be able to go work, but they said that I can't go work for myself because I'm self-employed and it gives me too much mobility. So then they say I have to seek employment. But the problem with that is the conditions of my release. Number one is I have to tell my prospective employer that I'm under federal indictment. Number two, I have to tell my prospective employer that I have a GPS tracking device on my leg. Number three, I have to tell my employer, or my employer has to agree to speak to my probation officer at any time. Number four, my probation officer has to be granted access to the job site, which I'm on. Number five, I'm subject to daily urinalysis. I have to call a phone number every day to see if I'm going to have a surprise urinalysis. And if they decide that I have to go pee that day, then I have to shut my job down and go take the urinalysis. Because, I mean, I'm not a laborer. I am a skilled electrician. I own my own company. I'm not going to be a helper. So they would hire me in the capacity of a lead man. And under that capacity, I would have to shut a job down. I can go take a drug test at any given time. So it could be a time when the potential I have to do a crush to get this job done. Well, all of a sudden, I've got to go take a UA. Well, I've disadvantaged my boss and his company and put them at harm of being sued or fined for not getting a job done on time. I mean,
for not having the proper supervision on the job, because the guy's a licensed electrician. He's got state rules and regs that he's got to follow to keep up with his licensing. He can't just leave a job and leave helpers there doing it. It's against the rules.
Yeah. So, I mean, they've made it extremely, extremely difficult for me to be able to function in any way in a capacity of having a job.
Yeah, let me tell you something. If you don't stand with KC now, I'm telling you, man, you're next on the list. They're coming for us. If you don't get them to back down and back off now, you ain't seen nothing yet, baby.
They're coming. They ain't stopping for shit, Sarge. Listen, I got to go. I got to make a phone call. I'm late. I forgot. I didn't realize what time it was. For Casey, it's, yet again, good to talk with you. And I don't know the other gentleman's name. What's your name, sir?
My name is James.
Oh, okay, James. I've heard you before. I remember your voice.
James Regulator Lewis. He used to co-host the Border Blog Talk radio show with me when I had the Border Blog Talk show. James used to be on that show with me. He was my co-host then. And shit, I've known James for many, many years. We're personal friends, and so good man,
my pleasure.
Good solid man.
My pleasure, James. Gentlemen, I bid you good night.
Good night, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
It's Yo-Yo We-Go.
We'll talk to you again. And don't forget to send me that message on Facebook so I can send you that link.
And
Will
don't
do,
forget
brother.
to look up Eddie Craig. Eddie Craig. Look him up. Eddie Craig on YouTube. And that. And,
I got that.
Yeah, it's Rule of Law Radio. www.ruleoflawradio.com.
Okay. Yeah.
I looked that up.
Good man. Outstanding. All right. See y'all later. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Hey, James, I'm going to call you on the regular phone. We'll jump off of here and close the show down. You there?